Have you ever had a guy pursue you, intensely texting you all the time, making you feel wanted, craving you like you're the only woman on earth, and then suddenly he goes silent? No explanation, no goodbye, just disappears into thin air. You're left staring at your phone, replaying every moment, wondering, did I do something wrong? Was he ever serious? Or worse, was any of it even real? Let me stop you right there. This isn't about you being too much, too needy, or not enough. This silence isn't rejection, it's a reflection. In this video, I'm going to pull back the curtain on what's really going on in a man's mind when he craves you, but goes silent. And the truth? It will absolutely shock you. Because most women have been told to just wait, play it cool, or give him space. But the space you give a man with no emotional maturity is the same space he uses to retreat into confusion, fear, or games. Silence can be a weapon, but it can also be a signal that he's craving something, but it might not be you. This is the part no one teaches you. This is the part that leaves strong, beautiful women questioning their worth. So stay with me, because by the end of this video, you won't just understand why he's silent. You'll know exactly what to do about it and how to stand in your power while doing it. Let's get into it. Here's something most women don't realize. A man can crave you deeply and still do absolutely nothing about it. Yes, he can be thinking about you nonstop. He can want your body, your energy, your attention, and still sit there in complete silence. Why? Because craving is not the same as commitment, and it's definitely not the same as courage. You see, when a man craves you, it activates a powerful but temporary emotional high. Think of it like a dopamine spike. He wants to feel you, talk to you, fantasize about you, but that craving is often rooted in what he wants to feel, not what he wants to build. It's about the experience of desire, not the reality of relationship. This is where a lot of women get hurt, because your connection feels real. You feel the intensity, the chemistry is undeniable, and you assume that his craving must mean he's serious. But here's the hard truth. Craving without action is emotional immaturity in disguise. He might crave your energy because it makes him feel alive. He might crave your attention because it feeds his ego. He might crave your presence because it distracts him from his own emptiness. But none of that means he's ready for you. Craving is about him. Action is about you. A man who is emotionally available won't just crave you. He'll show up for you. He'll make space for you. He'll take consistent action that matches his words. The problem is, we confuse craving with love. We confuse intensity with intimacy. And when he pulls away, we blame ourselves when really he was never standing on solid ground to begin with. So next time a man comes in hot, pouring on the attention, promising the world, does listen to his desire. Watch what he does when it's time to act. Because a man's silence after craving isn't a mystery, it's a message. And if you listen closely, it tells you everything you need to know about his emotional capacity. Let that sink in. When a man goes silent, the first thing many women do is panic. You start questioning everything. Is he losing interest? Did I push him away? Should I reach out? But let's pause for a second, because the silence you're experiencing may not mean what you think. It's not always about you. In fact, it's rarely about you at all. Men process emotions differently. When they feel something unfamiliar, especially something vulnerable, they often retreat, not because they don't care, but because they don't know how to care in a connected, consistent way. Silence, to many men, is a default setting when they're overwhelmed, uncertain, or feeling emotionally exposed. But here's the twist. Silence doesn't always mean confusion. Sometimes it's calculated. Sometimes it's strategic. And sometimes it's a coping mechanism. Let me explain. When a man starts to catch feelings, he can either lean in and explore those emotions, or he can pull back and try to regain control. If he's not emotionally mature, feelings make him feel vulnerable. And vulnerability to him feels like weakness or danger. So instead of communicating what he's experiencing, instead of saying, I need time, or I'm not ready, or even I'm scared, he simply goes quiet. He waits to see if you'll chase. He watches if you'll hold space for him, or if you'll collapse into insecurity. That silence becomes a test, not always consciously, but behaviorally. He wants to see if you're still there, still waiting, even when he's not giving anything. It's his way of keeping control while avoiding emotional intimacy. Now here's the real truth most women need to hear. A man who values you won't stay silent. A man who's serious about you will not risk losing you through absence. Because men do know what silence means. And when he chooses it, he's making a statement. That statement might be, I want the benefits of your presence without the responsibility. It might be, I'm scared of my own feelings, so I'll disappear until they pass. Or worse, I'm not as invested as I made it seem. Whatever the reason, one thing is certain. A man's silence speaks louder than his words ever could. It tells you whether he's emotionally available. It tells you how he handles pressure. It tells you how he communicates in conflict, uncertainty, or intimacy. So the next time a man goes quiet, don't chase noise. Tune into what his silence is revealing. Because in that quiet space, you'll hear truth if you're willing to listen to it. Let's be honest, when a man says he just needs space, it sounds reasonable. You want to respect his process, give him time, and show you're not clingy. But here's the truth that no one talks about. Sometimes space is not about needing clarity. It's about avoiding intimacy. There's a huge difference between a man who's taking space to reflect and a man who's using silence to escape emotional accountability. And if you don't learn to spot that difference, you'll keep holding space for someone who's never planning to return. So let's get crystal clear. These are the signs his silence isn't self-care. It's emotional avoidance in disguise. First, look at the pattern. Did he disappear right after things got deep? After a vulnerable moment, a serious conversation, or when you started to expect consistency? If his silence shows up only when connection gets real, he's not protecting peace, he's dodging depth. Second, does his space come with zero communication? A man who cares about you won't vanish without context. He'll say, hey, I need a day or two to reset, or I've got a lot on my mind. But when he just drops off, leaves you confused, and expects you to wait with no clarity, that's not boundaries. That's emotional avoidance. Third, pay attention to how he reappears. When he returns, does he acknowledge the silence, apologize, take responsibility? Or does he just pick up the conversation like nothing happened, expecting access to you without earning it? Because avoidance isn't just about disappearing. It's also about refusing to deal with the impact of that disappearance. Another sign, he shuts down when emotions surface. You bring up how you feel, and he changes the subject. You express a need, and he calls it drama. You ask for clarity, and suddenly he's too stressed to talk. That's not a man protecting his peace. That's a man protecting his distance, because vulnerability feels like pressure, and pressure sends him running. And here's a big one. You feel emotionally unsteady around him. 1 minute he's warm and present, the next he's cold and distant. You find yourself constantly trying to be chill, walking on eggshells, trying not to push too hard. You're not in a relationship, you're managing a man's emotional anxiety. This isn't love, this is survival mode. And survival mode is exactly where emotional avoidance want to keep you, because as long as you're off balance, you won't question their inconsistency. Here's what you need to remember. Real connection doesn't require chasing, decoding, or guessing. A man who wants you, respects you, and values your heart will not play hide and seek when things get serious. He'll communicate, he'll show up. He won't make you feel like expressing your emotions is a risk. So the next time a man says he needs space, don't just listen to the words. Watch the pattern. Look at how he uses that space. And most importantly, ask yourself this. Does his silence bring me peace or anxiety? Because if it's anxiety, that's not space. That's emotional avoidance, wrapped in polite language. You deserve a love that doesn't disappear when things get real. A love that welcomes vulnerability instead of hiding from it. a love that feels safe, not silent, let that guide you forward. There's a moment when his behavior stops making sense. He pulls back, goes quiet, becomes unpredictable, and suddenly you're wondering, is he testing me, or is he just not that into this? That question can drive you crazy, because when a man starts acting distant, your mind naturally wants to fill in the blanks. You think maybe he's checking to see if you'll chase him. Maybe he wants to know if you're really interested. Maybe he's trying to see how much space you'll give. And yes, some men do test women, but let's be real. When a man is truly invested, he doesn't need to test you. He already knows your value because he's paying attention. He already knows your intentions because he's communicating. And he doesn't play games with someone he's afraid to lose. So let's break this down. If a man is testing you by going silent, pulling away, or giving you crumbs of attention just to see what you'll do, that's not a test. That's manipulation. That's him trying to maintain control, not connection. And when someone uses silence or distance to provoke a reaction, they're not building a relationship. They're managing your emotional response. Think about how that makes you feel. Anxious, confused, uneasy. And that's exactly the point. Because when you're unsure, when you're off balance, you'll start proving your worth. You'll start trying harder, reaching out more, lowering your standards just to get back to how things used to feel. But here's the truth. Someone who is emotionally invested doesn't want you anxious. They want you secure. They want you to feel safe with them. They want you to trust the consistency of their presence. When a man is not invested, he often hides behind ambiguity. He keeps the connection alive just enough so you don't fully walk away, but not enough to make you feel truly chosen. He gives compliments, but no clarity. Affection, but no commitment. Promises, but no plans. And here's the hardest pill to swallow. Sometimes a man's silence or distance isn't a test at all. It's not strategy. It's just disinterest, dressed up as complexity. Because no man wants to admit, I like the attention, but I don't actually want to invest in you. That sounds selfish, but his behavior says exactly that. And you can feel it, because even when he comes back around, something's always missing. The consistency, the security, the energy of someone who's truly there emotionally, mentally, and physically. So the next time you ask yourself, is he testing me? Flip the question. Ask, is this behavior making me feel emotionally secure or emotionally exhausted? Because if it feels like a test, it's probably already too complicated. And healthy love doesn't play games to see how far you'll bend. You are not here to pass someone's test. You are not here to earn love through confusion. You are here to receive love that is clear, consistent, and rooted in mutual respect. Don't waste your energy decoding silence or analyzing inconsistency. If he's truly invested, you'll know, not because he says it, but because he shows it. And if he's not showing up, that's your answer. Don't wait around to be chosen. Choose yourself first. When a man pulls away, it can feel like emotional whiplash. One day, he's fully present, texting, calling, making you feel seen. The next, he's distant, quiet, and suddenly hard to reach. And in that space of silence, your mind starts racing. What did I do? Is he losing interest? Should I reach out or wait? This is the moment where most women lose their grounding. They start chasing clarity instead of protecting their peace. But here's what you need to hear. A man pulling away is not your cue to self-abandon. It's your invitation to return to yourself. Emotional grounding is the ability to stay centered no matter what someone else is doing. It's knowing that his behavior does not define your worth, and it doesn't control your emotional state. So how do you stay grounded when everything in you wants to react? First, pause before you respond. When your emotions spike, your first instinct will be to fix, explain, or reconnect. But grounding starts with stillness. Before you send that message, reread that last text or replay every interaction. Take a breath. Come back to the moment. Ask, Is this reaction coming from self-trust or fear of abandonment? Second, remind yourself of the facts, not the fears. Fear says, he's pulling away because I'm not enough. Fact says, he's pulling away and I don't know why, but it's not a reflection of my value. Don't fill in the silence with self-blame. Silence is information, not a sentence. Third, stay rooted in your own routine. One of the fastest ways to lose your emotional balance is to make someone else's behavior the center of your world. Get back into your rhythm. Move your body. Spend time with people who make you feel seen. Create, journal, breathe, live. Your life doesn't pause because he's unsure. Fourth, resist the urge to overcompensate. When someone pulls away, it's tempting to lean in harder. But chasing connection while someone is emotionally retreating will only drain your energy and lower your standards. Let him pull away and watch what you do with that space. Use it to reconnect with your power, not to prove your worth. Fifth, talk to yourself like someone you love. When he pulls away, it's easy to spiral into self-criticism. But grounding requires gentleness. Say to yourself what you would say to a best friend. You didn't do anything wrong by loving. You didn't mess up by being real. And you don't have to shrink just because someone else can't meet you where you are. Here's the truth. The way someone handles distance reveals their emotional capacity. The way you handle it reveals your emotional maturity. You don't need to chase someone to be chosen. You don't need to lose yourself to feel loved. And you don't need to interpret someone's silence as your failure. So when he pulls away, don't panic. Anchor deeper. Hold your center. And remember, anyone who makes you feel unstable is not aligned with the version of you that's learning to feel safe inside herself. The more grounded you become in your own energy, the less power someone else's inconsistency has over your peace. That's where your strength is. That's where your clarity is. That's where real love begins, not with them, but with you. When a man goes silent or starts pulling back, your instinct might be to react. You want to call him out, get clarity, or maybe even guilt him into showing up again. But here's the truth. High-value women don't react. They respond with intention, clarity, and confidence. Your response in moments of uncertainty can either protect your peace or sabotage your power. And the way you communicate during these emotional shifts sets the tone for how people treat you moving forward. So let's talk about the most powerful strategy you can use. High-value communication. It's not about proving your worth. It's about protecting it. And it starts with knowing that silence doesn't require panic, it requires presence. Here's what a high-value response looks like when a man starts pulling away. First, you don't immediately chase. You don't double text. You don't ask, did I do something wrong? You don't fill the gap with anxious energy. Why? Because if someone is unsure about you, you don't convince them. You give them the gift of space and observe what they do with it. Second, you express, you don't explode. If you decide to reach out, your message is calm, clear, and grounded. You don't demand answers. You don't beg for validation. Instead, you lead with self-awareness. Say something like, hey, I've noticed some distance lately. I value honesty and clear communication, so I just want to check in. If you need space, that's totally fine. Just let me know where you're at. Simple, direct, respectful. You're showing emotional intelligence and self-respect in one sentence. That kind of communication separates you from the crowd because most people either chase or shut down. Third, you don't wait around. You send the message and then you go live your life. You don't sit by the phone refreshing your notifications. You don't pause your plans or put your joy on hold. High-value women know that their time is sacred. And anyone who creates confusion is not entitled to access it endlessly. Fourth, you honor the response or the lack of one. If he responds with clarity and takes ownership, great. That opens the door for a real conversation. But if he avoids, deflects, or doesn't reply at all, that is the response. And a high-value woman doesn't keep giving energy to someone who can't meet her in emotional maturity. Fifth, you reflect, not obsess. You don't need to play detective. You don't need to find 12 reasons for why he pulled back. You ask one question. Is this behavior aligned with the relationship I want to build? And if the answer is no, you adjust not to punish him, but to protect yourself. Because that's what high-value communication is about. Not forcing closeness, not performing worthiness, but communicating your standards in a way that's calm, clear, and deeply grounded in self-respect. Here's the magic. When you communicate like this, you stop attracting emotionally unavailable men because they can't handle that kind of clarity. And the ones who can, they rise to meet you. They appreciate you. They don't run from directness, they lean into it. So the next time a man goes silent, remember, you don't beg, you don't break, you build boundaries through powerful communication. Because real love doesn't live in confusion, it grows in clarity. Let's bring it all home. Because after everything, the silence, the mixed signals, the questions you've been asking yourself, there's one truth you need to fully own. You deserve clarity. Not maybe, not someday, not once he figures things out. You deserve clarity right now because your heart isn't meant to survive on uncertainty. It's easy to internalize a man's silence and make it about you. You start wondering if you were too much or not enough. Too expressive, too available, too emotional, too intense. But let me be very clear, your sensitivity is not the problem. His inability to handle intimacy is. You deserve someone who doesn't flinch when things get real. Someone who doesn't retreat into silence the moment you express a need. Someone who communicates, even when it's hard, because they care about how their absence might make you feel. That kind of emotional maturity is not too much to ask. It's the bare minimum of real connection. But here's what happens when you've been conditioned to accept less. You confuse emotional neglect with space. You confuse inconsistency with mystery. You confuse the thrill of guessing with the illusion of love. And that ends now. Because when a man pulls away without explanation, when he keeps you in the dark, when he makes you question your own instincts, that's not love. That's emotional instability masquerading as romance. A high-value woman doesn't sit in silence hoping someone will change. She sees the lack of clarity for what it is, a red flag, not a puzzle to solve. It's time to stop romanticizing the man who keeps you guessing. The one who shows up when it's convenient and disappears when it's not. The one who says, I miss you, but never follows through. The one who wants the benefits of emotional closeness without the responsibility that comes with it. Because you weren't created to be an emotional placeholder. You are not here to be someone's option while they figure out if they're ready. You are here to be met, seen, chosen, without confusion, without conditions, without silence. Here's what empowered clarity looks like. You don't wait to be picked. You pick yourself. You don't shrink to be accepted. You expand and let the right people meet you at your fullest. You don't beg for communication. You embody it. And if someone can't match that energy, you don't argue, you exit. And maybe walking away from someone who once gave you butterflies is hard. But staying in a situation that slowly erodes your self-worth is harder. You deserve the kind of love that doesn't leave you guessing.